Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Patterson, and I am with Who's Well, which is a part of UVA HR. So I just want to welcome everyone to our presentation today, which is Understanding Medicare. And I'll just go through a couple quick housekeeping items related to chat and Q&A. First of all, chat, we just want to reserve that for any technical issues that you may encounter. So please just put anything related to that in there so that we can address it. And then the Q&A is the area where you can ask questions and receive answers. So any type of content related question, we'll either reply to you via text or we'll answer your question live. And if you choose to send it anonymously, if you do not want anyone to know who is sending the question, you can certainly do that within Q&A as well. And then if there's a question that somebody asks that you're extremely interested in, you can certainly add comments so that we can make sure that it's a popular question and we answer it, or you can like it as well, so that way it's considered an upvote. So I will go ahead and introduce our presenter today, which is Mr. Randy Rogers. And Randy is the Manager of Community Services with the Jefferson Area Board for Aging. So we're super excited to have Randy. He's been with us many times to present during our open enrollment expo time. And one last thing, if you haven't had a chance to check out our virtual expo, please do so. It is open until October 16th, which is the last day of open enrollment. So I will pass it over to you, Randy.
Hello, everyone. See, are we passed over? I still see you. There we are. Hello, everyone. My name is Randy Rogers, and I'm very excited to be here today. As she said, Sarah's had me come many times before to talk about a rather confusing topic, and that's about Medicare. We kind of look at it this way: is you've had these great people here from HR helping you in decisions when it comes to your health insurance and how you're going to set it up for the year, and they're there to help you. Well, once you retire and essentially go into Medicare, you sort of become your own HR department. And most of us don't have experience in that at all. And so it can seem a bit confusing. And the second thing is that Medicare is unlike most employee insurance. There's things that are completely different in how it works and how it happens that you get things paid for. So let me pull up some screens here for us. And you should see a little slide there, and let's see, get her to go. Medicare basics. So Medicare itself is a federal program for health insurance. You are eligible for it when you turn 65, or you've received Social Security disability benefits for 24 months, so you could be eligible for it before you're 65. Medicare is not available for people who retire before 65. That's important to know. And not available to the spouse of people who might be under 65 if the retiree is 65, because Medicare is not necessarily, you don't have couples policy. Everybody is an individual when it comes to the health insurance under Medicare. You may retire and be eligible for Medicare. Medicare becomes your primary health insurance once you retire. That may happen after you're 65, maybe much later than that if you retire later, and then Medicare becomes your primary. And we'll talk about Medicare, and if you're still on UVA health insurance or another employee health insurance and how those things interact. We'll talk about that a little later. There are state retiree health plans that could become your secondary employment. In the state of Virginia, it's called Advantage 65. But there's other options for secondary insurance, which we'll talk all through this. If you've had at least 15 years, I think it's still 15 years of state employment, you may receive health credits to offset part of your out-of-pocket expenses for your health insurance. So that's just sort of brief overview here, but I'm going to hit just how Medicare is set up. There are basically two paths for Medicare. There's original Medicare, how Medicare was originally set up, and that is it divides the health insurance into pieces. Now, that's not how your health insurance is if you have health insurance through UVA. It's all does one package and you get that and it takes care of everything. Well, Medicare is broken into pieces. Basically, A is hospitalization insurance and covers things if you go into the hospital. B is the workhorse. It's the medical insurance, pays for the doctors, sometimes even the doctors in the hospital, pays for tests, pays for a bunch of other things when it comes to it. That's sort of the workhorse of it. And then Part D is your prescription insurance as part of that. Now, if you look at that as a package, we'll get to the supplement in a second, but you got A, which is free if you have put in 40 quarters into Social Security, paying into Medicare, then A would be free for you. If you didn't put in the 40 quarters or 10 years, then there would be a charge for Part A, and that depends on how much you have put in and how much you haven't. Part B, there is a premium for it. And every year that premium may be a little different. It's $144.60 is sort of the base level premium if you started Medicare today. There's always a caveat to almost anything I say, but that we're going to leave that at $144.60. And then Part D is a separate insurance that you get. It's actually managed by a private insurance company. So it could be any of the insurance companies that have a prescription plan. And that's just solely covering the things that you pick up at the pharmacy that you have a script for, prescription for, not over-the-counter medicine. Now, A and B, we're going to look at, but they pay part of the bill, and then you get a supplement to cover most of the rest of the bill. We're going to say the rest of the bills for the medical things. The supplement does not affect the Part D at all. It just is a part of A and B. So you get down there and you got a supplement for it. We got a slide to cover all that. Now, if that's the original Medicare, how Medicare was set up, but there's another way of doing it now. You have Medicare Advantage plans. And they basically take everything over here and ball it up and put it over into this side. So you got your A, B, and usually your D in what's called Part C, but is most people refer to it as Medicare Advantage. And those in our area are usually HMOs or PPOs, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Most of you are used to HMOs or PPOs. So let's go back and let's just talk through the original Medicare a little more detail. Part A will pay for a hospital. It'll also pay for skilled nursing. And when I say hospital, I mean your stay in the hospital, not necessarily the doctors or even all of the tests. Some of those may slide over into B. But Part A is sort of your stay in the hospital and your skilled nursing if you have to go into the hospital or go to skilled nursing after you've been in the hospital. And that gets very tricky as you really do have to be in the hospital for 3 nights that you are admitted into the hospital. Some of you people may understand that better than even I do. But then after that point, you can go to skilled nursing and be there, and Part A will pick that up. Part B, we're talking about you go to the doctor's office, you have some tests run, the doctor wants to see this or that. They pay, and we're just going to basically say 80% of the bill. Now, there's a little more details in that. The Part B deductible is $198 a year, and then it picks up 80% of the bill. And the hospital under Part A, there's a deductible that it pays for of $1,400 I think 1408 this year, and then it pays so much per day depending on how many days you're there. But it balances out to about 80% of the bill if we think about it. If you've got that, you have a pretty big exposure because of Medicare doesn't have an out-of-pocket maximum. You know, your insurance right now may have, once you get to $5,000 or $10,000, then the bleeding stops and, you know, the insurance is picking up all or a greater part of the bill. Medicare doesn't have that. You owe 80%, it pays 80% and you owe 20%, and that's infinite. So you go in for $1,000, $200 is on you. You go in for $10,000, $2,000, that $100,000, $20,000 is on you, and it just keeps going. So what people want to do is to have a Medicare supplement insurance, also known as a Medigap insurance, and then the state offers one that's like a Medicare supplement, which we'll go into at the end. But those plans basically are going to pick up the 20%. So you pay a private insurance company to be your Medigap insurance, and with a little bit of caveat, usually it's the Part B deductible of $198. It's still on you, but then the rest of it, it's picking up the 20%. So in a sense of Medicare is going to pick up 80% of the bill, and the supplement's going to pick up the rest of it, and all you have to do is pay the premiums for these, for the Part B and for the Medicare supplement. So that is the root level of the medical part in original Medicare. Now, when we go over to the prescription part of it, you're going to think about it in this way. Every prescription you have is going to cost money. When you get a prescription insurance, it's going to basically pick up 75% of the cost of the drug, and you're going to pay 25%. Now, there's a whole lot of swing with that because sometimes they're picking up 100% of it, and sometimes they're only picking up 60% of it, and it all depends on what the drug is and what your pharmacy is. And so you find out what prescriptions you're on, and you get a plan that matches that. And then every year, you can change that plan to a different plan that matches the prescriptions you have and the pharmacies you go to. But at the very base level, you think about it as they're paying 75% of it, you're paying 25% of the drug, and you pay a premium for that. And it could run anywhere roughly, depending on the plan, not on your drugs, but on the plan, it could run anywhere from $10, most are in the teens or 20s, and some are as high as 100 or so. But you want to find the one that matches with your prescriptions. So that's the Part D, and that's separate. That is a separate insurance company that you get that through, though it is regulated by Medicare. Now, if we think about the Part C, or as we said, the Medicare Advantage is, it takes the A, B, and usually the D and throws it all together and hands that all over to a private insurance company to manage. We have HMOs and PPOs in our area. Basically, if you think about an HMO, the insurance company says, here are the doctors and the facilities and the therapists and everything that are in network, and you need to stay in network. Don't go out of network or we're not paying for it. Then you have PPOs, which are, here is the network of the doctors and the hospitals and the therapist, and you want to stay inside that lane, but you can go outside that and we'll still pay for it. It'll just be a higher price for you to pay for it on the PPO. That's the basic explanations of how the HMO or the PPO works. Now, with a Medicare Advantage plan, you're going to have co-pays or co-insurances for basically everything. You know, if you go to the doctor, it's going to cost you $10. You go to a specialist, it's going to cost you $45 or so. And it all depends on what the plan is. It depends on how much those copays are. Or if you have this particular type of test, you've got a co-insurance of 20% or 10% or 15%. And so everything is set up that way where you have a copay or a co-insurance for any of the medical things. And then the prescription part of it sort of works the same way as a Part D. It's just attached to it where they're picking up a large part of the prescription, and you are then picking up the rest of the cost of that. So that's basically how the Part Cs are put together, or Medicare Advantage. Let me guess, I did jump ahead of my slide once and talk about the HMOs and the PPOs. And I'm going to come back to our big slide of original Medicare and Medicare Advantage. And what I want to say about this is, depending on where you live, what your zip code is, what's available to you is different. Every time that we get a new congressman in, I tend to have a meeting with them to kind of talk them through Medicare, give them some answers. I happened to be in a big meeting with Congressman Riggleman when he first came into office, and I wish I had a camera for the look on his face when I told him just that. I said, look, the big thing you want to take away from you with here is Medicare is a national program. How it plays out and how much it costs and what's available to you is all dependent upon your zip code. And I mean, his jaw just dropped and he was like, are you kidding me? He had no idea that it was like that. And some of you may have no idea that it was like that. So it is, what is available to you may depend on your zip code. What Medicare Advantage plans to you, if you live in Greene County or you live in Fluvanna County, or you live inside Charlottesville or in Albemarle County, which ones are available to you are different. The Part D plans are kind of statewide. And so for the most part, they're all available across our total area. But the Medicare Advantage plans are different all over the country. Now, where there are big populations of retired people, there are a lot of private insurance companies trying to get people's business for the Medicare Advantage plans. So they're in big competition with each other. And they have a lot of great things with their Medicare Advantage plans. The cost of them, what they cover, how much copays are, they're very interesting to look at if you live there. The fact that we live in Virginia, and especially that we don't live in like Arlington or something like that, the Medicare Advantage plans that are available to us are much more limited, and there's less competition, and the plans themselves are, they're less competitive. They don't do quite as well as other places. We have people who move here from the West Coast or from Florida or from New Jersey, and they move here and they say, well, we want to talk about a Medicare Advantage plan. Let's look at them. And we show them a printout, a summary of the different plans here. And they're like, what the heck is that? I mean, that is not what the plan that they had at all where they came from. And so we do have a lot of people who will move from a Medicare Advantage plan to an original Medicare when they move here from other parts of the country that have great plans. We still get the advertisement in our area for Medicare Advantage plans. And we were in the middle of open enrollment last year, and there were a lot of commercials on TV about how great and the wonderful add-on things that Medicare Advantage has. In fact, I saw one watching football yesterday where it was, it'll pay for a lot of things that Medicare doesn't pay for. And it's like, okay, not necessarily our plans, not the ones here. It's during open enrollment last year. It's the end of the day, and I got a little snarky with someone because they came in and they were like, well, I really want to talk about these Medicare Advantage plans I'm seeing these commercials for. They sound really great. I want to get one of those. And I looked at her and I said, so you're planning on moving to New York City? And she goes, no, why? I said, well, that's where you'll have to live to get that plan. And so she was a little taken aback by that. So when Joe Namath or somebody tells you how great a Medicare Advantage plan is, take it with a grain of salt, because you really want to look at the Medicare Advantage plans in our area, which are not as competitive. I looked at the numbers about a year ago, and the national average for Medicare beneficiaries on an Advantage plan was about 37%. And then I looked at the numbers, and we have a lot of people who are on Medicare who are under 65 who are on Medicare Advantage plans because of the way the rules are set up in Virginia. That's the best option they have. But when you cut out those people, when you just go, what's the number of people, percentage of people 65 or older in the state of Virginia that have a Medicare Advantage plan? It's not 37%, it's 4%. And most of those people are up in Alexandria or sometimes down in the Virginia Beach area. So how we're going there. Let me see how we're doing before I move on about this. If we've got any, do we have any questions on the chat or anything? My other co-host here, people still got anything for me?
Yeah, one question has come in through the chat from Daniel. How much do Medicare Advantage plans usually cost in comparison to Medigap?
Good question. Medicare Advantage plans in our area can go as low as $0. So it would be no extra cost. You still would have to pay the Part B 144.60, but then it could be as low as $0. It goes up to about $83 for some of them in our area. So they are cheaper. Now, if you are 65 and going on to a Medigap policy, your plan will probably start in the 80s, maybe about 85 or so. It depends on male or female or so. So those plans would start out towards the high end of at the high end of what the Part C's. Now, the plans that are $0 for the Medicare Advantage have extremely limited HMOs. The one I'm thinking of, and it's a good plan, it does pay well, but you have to see only UVA doctors, go to UVA hospital and UVA specialists and therapists and stuff. If you go to Martha Jefferson for anything, then that whole bill is on you. So, you have to kind of watch what the HMO network is, or even the PPO networks are, to see about that. But the plan obviously costs more. Now, a Medicare Advantage plan, the cost changes every year, but it's not changing on your age. The Medicare supplement plans, they do go up every year by your age, a few percentage points, 2 to 4 percentage points every year. So the older you get, the more expensive it gets. So that's the answer with that. Anything else you got there for me?
We have two other questions. One came in through the chat and another through the Q&A window.
Yes.
And I would like to just remind all participants that it would be super helpful if you could type in your questions in the Q&A window rather than the chat. It just helps us to manage the questions a little more smoothly. So the question in the chat is, how often can you switch between government says Medicaid, I assume it means Medicaid.
Medicare, yeah.
Medicaid and Medicare Advantage plans, yearly?
Yes. So you can change Advantage plans during open enrollment every fall for the next year. Now, here is an interesting thing. Thank you for leading me right into something, which is every year you can change your Medicare Advantage plan to see if you got one that might fit you better, covers your drugs better, has the doctors you need in them or so, but you can't just change it willy-nilly. It is, you pick one in the fall, it goes into effect on January 1. Now, when you first come on to Medicare, you sort of have a 12-month window to kind of make a change or so. And then Medicare added a new feature a little over a year ago, where if you start the year with a Medicare Advantage plan, and let's say you're trying one out, you've got January, February, and March to go, crap, I hate this plan. I don't want this plan. I want a different plan. And then it will allow you to change plans, but only in the first part, only if you start the year with an Advantage plan, and then you do it in the first 3 months, you can make a change. That's a pretty new adjustment there to Medicare Advantage. Now, here's where it gets real interesting. When you first come into Medicare, let's say you turn 65, or you start your Part B later because you've been working and you're 70 and you come in. That's your start date. That starts a clock. And you have 6 months then to get a Medicare supplement plan under what's called a guaranteed issue right. That means every company has to take you. Every company has to give you the best price for your age, zip code, or male or female. So that they do that. And they can't ask you any medical questions except do you use tobacco. And so they have to give you. So I can have somebody who is able to run a marathon and is in great health, and they will get, it's going to say $85 is the best price for that company. So $85 for their age, and that's it. I can have a second person who has had 2 heart surgeries, a diagnosis with cancer, and a few other things, and their price is going to be $85 because they're under their guaranteed issue right, where the companies can't ask any medical questions whatsoever. They just have to take you. So that's like the first 6 months you have that guaranteed issue right. Now, both those people every year, their premium will go up a little bit, 2 to 4% every year as it's moving up. So it doesn't move based on their health. Once they're in, and they stay steady. So no health questions are asked. Once you pass that 6-month point of starting your Part B, whoops, sorry, I jumped a slide on us there. Sorry about that. Once you 6 months past the Part B, then your guaranteed issue right is all over with. And so now they don't have to take you. They don't have to give you the best price for your age, zip code, or male or female. And they will ask you every medical question in the book to determine if they're going to take you and how much they're going to charge you. And that can get really tricky. Sometimes I've seen some people, do pretty well there. It's okay. And then I've seen somebody turn down for a policy because the doctor ordered a test, not for the results of the test, just because the doctor requested that test be done. And they were turned down to even get the policy. So you do have a window that you can get in very easily when you first start. If you go over to Part C, there are no medical questions over on the Advantage plan. The Advantage plan has to take you. You're fine. But after being in for 12 months, if you want to go back to the other side, then there's no guaranteed issue right here in the supplements whatsoever. You have to, answer all the medical questions, and they don't have to take you, and they don't have to give you the best price for it. So once you've been over on the Advantage plan for a year, it makes it, I've heard representatives from Medicare, from CMS talking on national, like NPR and stuff, and say, yeah, it's really tough to come back over from the right side to the left side once you've been in Medicare for a year. So, you want to make sure you know what you want to do in the long term. Now, remember, you can always go and drop your supplement plan and go over to the Advantage plan at any time during, the open enrollment period, which means in the fall, you say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to cancel this so it ends on December 31st and this one starts on January 1. You can't just do it willy-nilly in the middle of the year, though. So, okay. So that is the thing. I know I answered more than what she asked. The question is yes, once every year you can change your Medicare Advantage plan to a different Medicare Advantage plan there. But I answered more than your question there because you kind of led me into it. Just threw me a nice softball. What else we got there?
Great. So the other questions have come in through the Q&A tab. So thank you so much for using that tab. Um, and so the advantage of the Q&A tab is that everyone can see everyone else's questions, which you could submit anonymously. So I don't know if Randy, you want to just go through those, or if you'd prefer me to read them out loud.
Well, let me look at the first one here. How can you find out what the percentage of those who are over 65 are in a specific area? That's a good question. I have access to a database that gives me a lot of information about the different states. And so I don't know that the average person can go ahead and do that. What you really want to do is compare, is that Advantage plan going to work for me? You know, do I feel like that's a good plan given here's how much it costs for all these different things? In a sense, if it works for you, it doesn't matter how many people are on it. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't matter how many people are on it. You know, your decision needs to be made individually on that. I just say on average, people, it's really weird how it works. I mean, last year, we're just getting the data in for 2021, but last year, we really only had 3-4 viable Advantage plans available to it. My dad lives in a little county in West Virginia, and the fact that it is in near proximity to Pittsburgh has 36 plans he could pick from, and we had 4. So it's really different, I guess, depending on your zip code of what's available there and how much the competition is. We see that there are going to be a few more added to our area here, but we had one last year that was available in a couple of our counties. And that's great. It looks like it's really good. But once you looked into it and realized the closest hospital you can go to that's in network was in Manassas. So you really have to look closely at these things. So, okay. Well, I'm planning on moving to another state. What do you recommend to find out the best plans for that? Now, the office that I work at is part of a federally funded program called SHIP. And there's SHIP offices all across the country. Every region has one of those. My suggestion, if you're moving to a different state, is just go online and look up. If you get to the SHIP, you just go SHIP Medicare in a search engine or so, and it'll bring you up to their site. And then first page, you can click on what state, and it'll give you the contact information for that state. Because I would not advise you on what direction to go in a different state, because I don't know what it looks like on the ground there. I don't know what the plans are. So, okay, I'm reading the next one here, which is I'm retiring in August. I'm on plan A. How far in advance should I get B and C? You really want to, if you were going to start in August, you want to start the process 3 months before August 1 to go through to make sure then everything is lined up. So then when you start your plan B on August 1st, then everything lines up. You've got all your pieces in place, and they all got the right start date of August 1st. Or, if you're retired, if you're starting your insurance in August, this person could be starting theirs in September or later. So, but yeah, you want to start any process about 3 months before you want your Medicare to start. The next thing, asking a question about, kind of checking whether you want to stay on the employer-based insurance versus enrolling in Medicare. There is a lot of variables in play with that to decide. One of them obviously has to do with, you mentioned somebody has not turned 65 yet in the couple, and you guys are both on the same insurance. So there's a lot to consider, and especially with UVA, we will go into that a little in just a few minutes, that UVA, there's a few things you really need to know about that. Social Security will not automatically enroll you in Medicare unless you are drawing Social Security. So if you haven't started drawing your Social Security, Medicare will not automatically enroll you in nothing. If you did, then if you are drawing your Social Security, then when you turn 65, it will automatically enroll you. But you can always contact them and say you don't want to start. It's interesting, CMS, Medicare, all the things going on are taken care of through CMS, through Medicare, except for the enrollment into Medicare for your A and B, and that enrollment is done through the Social Security office. And they're the ones that take care of getting you enrolled in Social Security. So, as boys, I would say this is, anytime you're making considerations of that, it's probably a good time to have a conversation with one of our counselors, because, and we didn't go into great detail, but because we're part of the SHIP program, all of our counselors are volunteers, and we are not connected to any insurance company. We can't be connected. You can't even, people who work or volunteer in our offices can't even have relatives that are in the insurance business, because we want to stay completely unbiased to trying to push you one way or the other based on anything that we would get out of it, because we get nothing out of it. But you want to sit down, or in this day, Zoom or phone call with one of our counselors to go over the specific details of your situation to see which one is the best way to go. And it all depends also about how much you're paying for your employer-based insurance, because if you're extremely subsidized, then it may be a better solution to stay on it. But individually, you'll need to really talk with a counselor to go over your specific thing. I got one more here, and then I'm going to actually go on with some more slides and then come back to the questions. If you choose Medicare Advantage in your area and you're happy with it, but then the company decides to leave your area, you actually, if your insurance decides to take off and leave you abandoned, whether that's an Advantage plan or a Medicare supplement plan, then you actually get a window of 63 days in which you're back to square one, and you could get a Medicare supplement plan with a guaranteed issue right for 63 days, or you could get a new Medicare Advantage plan and get that all set up. Now, the timeline of 63 days is really important, because a lot of people, this stuff is happening, and then they don't, they're focused on a lot of different things and don't realize they were really up against the timeline to get their insurance set up right. But yeah, if a company leaves or folds, you have 63 days that you can basically start from scratch and make a decision again. If you move out of state and your insurance won't go with you, then you have the same 63-day start from scratch. We get people who were on Advantage plans who move here in the middle of the year from Pennsylvania or so, and the plan won't cover here. And so they've got a new start where they could pick a different Advantage plan, or they could get a supplement plan with a guaranteed issue right, which is really cool. They got 63 days to do it. Several years ago, we had one of the Advantage plans drop. When open enrollment came out, they go, "Oh, this Advantage plan is not going to be here next year," and it was in Fluvanna County and Nelson County. I'm trying to think if there was another one off the top of my head. And so just because that plan decided to stop and they weren't going to offer that plan anymore, we moved a lot of people out of Advantage plans into a good supplement plan, because they now had a guaranteed issue right. They may be 85 years old and been on Medicare for 20 years, and now they still have a guaranteed issue right because that company decided to cancel their plan. So anyhow, let me move on here and get a few more details involved, very specific with UVA, and then we'll get back to the questions. So where are we at? Here we go. So you definitely want to check with the HR health department before age 65, or your spouse is not 65 yet, about what your options are for that spouse, for that person under 65. UVA and some other employers provide coverage under plans for active employees until your spouse turns eligible for Medicare. So if you go on to Medicare you could keep your spouse on UVA insurance until they get to 65. And I say that with a big caveat. If my understanding is still correct, that insurance will not be subsidized by UVA, and you would be paying the whole amount for that insurance for that spouse. And so there's some calculations you need to make. You could always go, if they don't want to stay on the employer plan, that they could always go over to pick up a marketplace plan under the Affordable Care Act and get a plan that way for the person who is under 65 in this couple. As I mentioned before, 3 months before retiring, your retirement date, you want to be contacting Social Security to start the process of getting your Medicare Part B or your Medicare Part B and A active. Application forms clarify creditable. They're going to have a form not only for you to fill out, but a form for your employer to fill out, especially if you are over 65, to just show that you were under creditable coverage up until the point you wanted to go on to Medicare. And then you really want to review your health insurance choices with the HR department also. We're going to talk about Advantage 65, which is not a Medicare Advantage plan. I'll explain that in a second. We're going to talk about it, but here's an important thing to note. If you want to take the state's supplemental policy, Medicare supplement, Medigap policy, you are going to be given that choice when you retire. And that is, you just decide whether you're going to take it or not take it, and then you could make other choices later. But you also, if you have a spouse who is under 65 and you want to get them onto the state retirement supplement plan later on, then you do need to keep them under employee insurance with your employee. Let's just say UVA. You want to keep them under insurance for that time until they turn 65, because if you drop them off the UVA insurance, then when they turn 65, they're not eligible for the Advantage 65, which is the state retirement insurance plan, which we're going to cover in detail here in a second. But you want to know that. Also, if you turn 65, your Part A, you can start your Part A, but a lot of times, especially the insurance, if you're with UVA, because they are high deductible plans, and so you're storing up a health savings account, you want to make sure you don't activate your Part A. Because if you activate your Part A when you turn 65, stay on UVA insurance and everything, and you're putting into a health savings account, all the tax benefits of that health savings account are nullified because you have Part A. So, and the HR, I know the HR people over there at UVA know this very well because I've heard them talking to people about this. If you 65 or older and you want to stay on UVA health insurance while you're working or so, be very careful about what you do with your Part A. You definitely don't want to be starting your Part B, but you don't want to start your Part A either on that. So you got to be very careful, and you could talk with HR about that in some more detail because I know they know their stuff about that also. Okay, let's talk about this Advantage 65. It is a Medicare supplement plan. So just like we talked about, you'd have your A and your B covering your 80% of your medical insurance, and then your supplement is picking up a chunk of the rest of it, if not almost all of it. This is what Advantage 65 does, the same thing. Now, Advantage 65 is something you'll be offered when you retire once you're over 65. You'll be offered this plan. It comes with options with it. It comes with the supplement option, and then it also comes with adding on prescription insurance, or adding on dental and vision insurance. Now, those are some good options. And I will say this because I can say this, and maybe UVA can't say this or so, but I will say this, is the Advantage 65 over the years has been a very good option for people coming out of work there. Now, the monthly premiums for just the base level of the supplement is $170. And that's high compared to what you could get in you're picking up a supplement on the open market like everybody else. That premium is pretty high. The difference with that premium is that it is not age-based. It's a group base. And so that is going to stay the same for the group. Now, it may vary a little bit in there with it, but it's not going to go up every year by age like your other supplements, your private insurance supplement plans are going to go. It's interesting, it's 170, this 2020 price is 170 for the base level of that. For most year, it is hung around 155. And so it was a little lower up until this year, at least in the 5 years I've been doing this. It has stayed pretty solid there. And we kind of felt that pricing was kind of competitive. Now, what we are hearing or finding out is in this last 12 months, other Medicare, private market Medicare Advantage plans, premiums are starting to spike a little higher every year. I said it was historically 2 to 4%, but we've heard of some 10% increases on particular ones, even a 13% increase this last year on one. And so that's going to, if that trend stays active, in which I have no crystal ball to tell whether that trend is going to stay that way, it's not going to take very long for your $85 a month, G plan on starting at 65 is going to be up to $170. So, there's some calculations. I can show you numbers, but I can't tell you what to do. Now, I will say this. The dental and the vision on the Advantage 65 are a good deal because there's really no such thing as good dental and vision insurance once you retire. A lot of people get private ones. We have the list of all the different insurances that are offered in this area. And I always tell people, I said, you don't care if you have a good dental or vision plan. You care if you have a good dental and vision plan that works at your dentist or optometrist. So I advise people to talk to their dentist or their optometrist when they're deciding on which dental plan to get or which vision plan to get. Actually, I said, don't talk to the dentist. They don't know nothing. Talk to the person at the front desk. They're the ones who are going to know what ones are the good plans. But overall, the plan you can get on the Advantage 65 is a very good value for what it offers. Now, the Part D plan, and this is inexplicable, it is a chunk of money. This last year, the premium was somewhere like $85 and $95 more extra to have that on. That's why we go up to $307 when you start adding things onto it. When the average open market plan was sitting around $20 a month. So you had, do I pay $85 or $20 a month? Some of it is all depending on what drugs you're covered, but we'll run the drugs, and almost always, and I will run the drugs because I'm not making no decision based on just fluff. I want to know what your drugs are, and let's check them on both type of plans. But I can honestly say only about 2 to 3% of people who come to me going on to Advantage 65 and say, should I take the prescription plan or should I get a Part D plan? I go, yeah, by far go on the Part D plan, not the one that is available on the Advantage 65. We figured that over the years, really you save about $1,200 to $1,500 a year in premiums alone by not choosing the prescription plan on the Advantage 65. Now, I can say that. I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if your HR people are allowed to say that, but I can say that. So Advantage 65 is something to seriously consider it. But once you turn it down, you've turned it down. And once you've turned down, let's say, just the dental part of it, you've turned the dental part down. And you're not going to get the option to go get it again. And people would ask me about that dental. It's like, well, maybe I want that in 5 years. And I go, not given the track record we've seen over the last 5 years, are you wanting to go back to that? Now, the supplement plan, the Medigap part of it, it's good. It works almost identical to the Part G plans, which is the most popular plans right now being bought for Medicare supplement plans. And then, as I said, the dental and vision are good. It's just sort of high price on the front end. On the first, if you're retiring at 65, you're going to be paying more on the front end. If you're retiring at 75, it may be more of a balanced choice. But again, once you've refused it and you're done. So let me jump here. And that's what I was saying, though. It doesn't increase by age. It's just across the board on that. So that's fine. That covers sort of the Advantage plan part of that. Let me get back to some questions here. Is Advantage 65 available if you retire before 65? No. And I will say this is the basic reason is it is a supplement to Medicare. If you don't have Medicare, then the Advantage 65 doesn't do you any good. So that's how that works. You got to think about those as supplements or supplements to Medicare. So that's kind of an easy answer. Somebody said, I'm 65 now, but I'll be working until 70. Do I have to register for Part? And then it kind of falls off there. You do not have to register for anything.
Yeah, I asked Chao Xie, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, to clarify that in the chat. So hopefully he or she will be able to clarify that question.
Yeah, I don't. In the chat, you say? Oh, okay, hang on. Let me go to my chat window. I'm going to stop sharing here for a second.
Yeah.
So I can come back here and see if I can find her in the chat.
I just sent her
I assume it's going to be.
Yeah, she didn't.
Oh, okay, well, let's hold on to that question. I think I know what she's asking. Is it correct that Medicare Advantage has an out-of-pocket limit, but Medicare does not? The answer is yes, it is correct. The out-of-pocket limit this year for most of the Advantage plans is $6,700. Those are the plans in our area. And obviously, if you get Medicare and don't get a supplement policy, you're exposed to basically 20% of all the bills, all the medical bills. So there is no out-of-pocket gap there. I don't think I would ever suggest to anyone to just get Medicare A and B without any kind of a gap policy or a supplement on it. The exposure, I'm just not comfortable with the exposure to the costs that you would have. So in a sense, the question is a good question, but it is comparing an apple to an orange. It is, yes, Medicare Advantage has an out-of-pocket limit around $6,700. It'll probably go up a little bit this year for the plans in our area. But I would never suggest having Medicare A and B without a supplement policy covering over top of it, even if it's a lower letter because they're all categorized by letters. G policies most popular right now. N policies are good ones to have because they're a little cheaper, but they don't cover. You still have a few co-pays at the doctor's office. So there's a bit of an apple and orange question there. I got to be careful that we don't get off that. Back on the Medicare supplement policies, they are lettered, and what they do by letter is like, okay, a G policy does this. It covers everything but the $198 Part B deductible. And every company's Part G plan is exactly the same by law. The only difference between the company selling it is how much are they going to charge you for it. So you don't, that it sort of makes it easy. If you picked, I want a G policy, now I'm just looking for the best price because nobody has a better G policy than the other person. Nobody has a better N policy than the other one. So yes, and we got the question back about the about if they're 70, do they need to register for A and B, have those activated? And absolutely not. You do not need to have those activated, especially if you're in UVA and you have or anywhere else and you have an HSA health savings account, you don't want to activate either of them. So yeah, you don't need your B active if you've got health insurance. Now, it is a little different if you work for a company that has under 20 people on their health care. And I don't think that's the audience necessarily I'm talking to right now, but the rules are different and you can talk with us about that. So yeah, actually the rules are really different, but you would have to be under 20 employees on the health care for that company. Okay, the top question here by Gary is asking if the Medicare Advantage plan, Advantage 65 is offered to you if you reach 65, if you retire prior to age 65. And the answer is only if you stayed on, let's just say UVA, you work for UVA, UVA's health insurance from the time that you retired until you got to 65. If you went with some other insurance or so, even if you went with Cobra, or so, then you are not, then the Advantage 65 is not an option for you anymore. And again, if that comes up, you really want to be talking to one of our people because we got to crunch the numbers given the number of months difference or years difference and figure out what's the best call financially. Can you both have Advantage 65 and a Medicare supplement plan, or do you just need one? You just need one because they are basically the same thing. And it would be redundant. You'd be paying two premiums for the same thing, and all you're going to do is really screw up the billing department. So, and we asked about the Advantage 65. Does it have an out-of-pocket maximum? No. Well, basically this Advantage 65 works as your supplement. So for medical bills, anything coming through Part A or Part B, they're going to pick up their 80%. You're going to be responsible for the Part B deductible of $198 for the year, not per incident, for the year. And then the Advantage 65 pays for everything. So my coworker here, same thing works if you got a Part G Medicare supplement. It works exactly the same way. You got to pay the deductible. So one of my coworkers here in the office, she turned 65 a couple years ago. She went and had her $50,000, waited till she went on Medicare, had her $50,000 knee replacement, and she paid $198 for the knee replacement. It's because Medicare paid its part, supplement paid everything except for that first $198. So does the supplement plan have an out-of-pocket maximum? And it is. For most of the plans that we're looking at, if you're looking at a G or an N plan or so, it's the $198, which is the Medicare Part B deductible. There are other plans, J's or K's and L's, that are available that have, we will pay for things, but only after you reach $2,000 or so. And the premiums are much cheaper, but in a sense, it's like, that's not why you're buying a supplement in the first place. Can a spouse that will not be eligible for Advantage 65 for 5-year-old be able to stay on UVA employee insurance until they turn 65, or are they only covered for 18 months or covered? No, UVA will let you keep them under UVA insurance. Again, this is their HR department. I'm answering their question. They may have a different answer, but from my understanding, UVA will let you keep that person on UVA employee insurance up until they turn 65, except that with this caveat is they're not subsidizing it. So you're going to pay the full amount for that, which last year, not this year, but last year, I mean, that was somewhere between $800 and $1,000 a month for that, to have that, pay for that plan, pay for the whole plan. Because UVA employees, you guys are pretty heavily subsidized on your insurance. So that's great for you guys. Okay, I think that's the question I just answered. So, and obviously if somebody's going to be 5 years out, you got to decide, is that Advantage 65 really worth paying $1,000 a month for insurance versus paying, $500 a month for insurance just to get the benefit of that Advantage 65? And those are some number calculations that, you just have to work through, and we can help you work through those processes. I advise everybody with this. If you're getting ready, you're thinking about getting ready to be on Medicare, come to us 3 months before. We'll make a timeline. We'll walk you through all the choices. And, we're not going to tell you, you got to do this or you got to do that. We're just going to show you all the choices and help you figure out how to get where you want to be. So, actually, I have a slide. I'm going to throw it up here if I can, that just has our phone number on it. If I can get back to the slides, there we go. And let's see, get to those. There we go. So that's got the phone number for our office and the email, which is insurance@javacares.org for us. Right now, obviously with COVID, it's kind of changed how our operations work, how we help people. We're doing about half of our clients are doing Zoom calls with the counselors, and some of them don't want to do the Zoom calls, and so they're just doing telephone calls with them. With that, but we're still getting ready to roll into open enrollment, and we'll see a couple thousand people even via that way to help them make decisions. Because when you're on Medicare, whether you're on original Medicare with a Part D or whether you are on an Advantage plan, come every fall, October 15th to December 7th, you've got open enrollment and you've got choices to make. People make this mistake. And they say, well, I like the insurance I have right now. I'm just going to keep it for next year. And I go, well, that's not the world we live in. You're going to get next year's version of that insurance, which may or may not work for you. And so, by changing plans or looking at options plans, you may save money. A different plan may cover your drugs better or cover your doctors better, or somebody may be in network or out of network, depending on the year. And we get calls all the time from people, in January and February, and they're at their pharmacy trying to pick up a drug, and they go, well, I'm trying to pick up the prescription I've been taking for years with the plan that I've had for years, and the pharmacist is saying it's not covered by my insurance anymore. And we go, pharmacist is right. It's not covered. And now instead of paying $25 for that, you're paying $200 for that a month. Because you didn't check during open enrollment to make sure your plan was the best plan for you. Last year, our counselors during those 7.5 weeks saw 3,300 people, help them figure out what's the best options for the next year. And by about little over half of them needed to change plans. And by changing their plans versus staying on the plan that they had, they saved $1.8 million on their prescriptions throughout the year. So open enrollment's a big deal every year, no matter which side of Medicare you're on, whether it's an Advantage plan or it's original Medicare. Open enrollment's something you need to do every year, whether you do it on your own or whether you get help from somebody like us. So let's see, do I have any more questions rolling up here? I got a bleepy thing on my chat. What's going on in the chat?
Yeah.
Let me get rid of that again. Okay. Matt, do I have anything else here?
No, nothing more. Oh, one sec. Just to comment, this was a great. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have had a great relationship over the years. It stemmed back at least 20 years. Where UVA and us have partnered together to make sure that when people are retiring, that they get the best help they can with all of the different choices that you need to make as you get ready to retire and to leave UVA. So.
Thank you so much, Randy. We appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, please also keep in mind that you can email askhr@virginia.edu as well, or call into our Solutions Center.
Thank you.
All right, well, we will wrap it up. Thank you so much, Randy, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Yeah, thank you.